The non-powered armor in Fallout doesn't get the respect it deserves. This is why today we're bringing you every non-powered armor in Fallout explained. Everyone obsesses over power armor. And yeah, walking tanks are cool, but here's what people miss. Power armor says I have resources. Non-powered armor says I have a reason to keep fighting with what I've got. And those reasons range from noble to desperate to completely unhinged. Some of this armor was stitched together by people with nothing left to lose. Some were precision engineered by a military preparing for an apocalypse it couldn't stop, and some are so bizarre you'll question the sanity of the devs who designed it. So with that cheerful note out of the way, let's go through every piece, from the scrappiest leather vest to the most advanced military hardware ever strapped to a human without a fusion core. Before we get to the next segment of the video, we'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Polybuzz AI. Polybuzz is an AI character platform where users can select or create virtual personas and engage in conversations that can range from casual chats to roleplay, storytelling, or creative exercises that can help you experience your favorite personalities from all over the media sphere on the go. The platform hosts over 20 million AI characters, including anime heroes, movie-style personas, historical figures, and original creations, making it one of the largest character-based AI ecosystems. Using Polybuzz, we've created an AI version of our channel's mascot that you can chat with and ask any questions you may have about the Fallout universe after watching our content. It's available on both the Apple Store and Google Play, though if you don't have access to either of these, by going to polybuzz.ai on your preferred browser, you can experience talking to your favorite real-world and fictional personalities from the comfort of your PC. Personalities like everyone's favorite wasteland reporter, Piper, and even the friendly synth detective Nick Valentine. You can start your conversations off all the better by using code GHOUL77, no space, for a 3-day free trial of their premium service. So what are you waiting for? Download Polybuzz today and truly immerse yourself in your favorite franchises. Now back to the video. Leather armor, Wasteland Foundation. Let's start where every Wastelander starts. Staring at leather armor and thinking, this is it? This is what's standing between me and death? And yeah, it kind of is. But here's the question nobody asks. If leather armor is so basic, so primitive, so clearly outclassed by everything that comes after it, then why has it survived in every single Fallout game since 1997? Was leather armor ever just a starter set? Or is it actually the most important armor in the entire franchise? Think about what leather armor represents. The bombs fell, factories stopped, supply chains dissolved overnight, military stockpiles were either irradiated, looted, or buried. The vast majority of survivors had nothing. No government issuing gear, no faction handing out equipment, just themselves, whatever animals they could hunt, and the knowledge that exposed skin in the wasteland is a death sentence. So they did what humans have done for thousands of years. They tanned hides, Brahmin leather mostly, stitched it together, reinforced the weak points, added studs or bone plates where they could, and leather armor was born not from innovation, from necessity. That distinction matters because it tells you something about the people wearing it. Leather armor isn't a choice. It's a statement that says I refuse to die today, and this is all I have. In Fallout 1, finding leather armor was the first time the game told you that you might actually make it. December 5th, 2161, the Vault Dweller steps outside Vault 13 wearing a jumpsuit and optimism. Neither offers much protection, but somewhere in those early hours, you find or buy leather armor, and the wasteland shifts from guaranteed death to probable death. That's an upgrade. In Fallout terms, that's practically luxury. Fallout 2 introduced the combat leather jacket. Slightly tougher, slightly cooler looking. The kind of thing that made you feel like you'd graduated from Desperate Survivor to Desperate Survivor with style. Haute couture it was not, but hey, when your fashion competition is naked person running from a rad scorpion, the bar is literally underground. It wasn't revolutionary, but in the early wasteland, even small improvements keep you breathing, and breathing is the whole point. New Vegas understood leather armor's role perfectly. The Mojave is brutal heat. Heavy armor means dehydration in hardcore mode. So leather became a legitimate tactical decision, not a placeholder. Reinforced leather added metal plates in critical areas, creating a hybrid that bridged the gap between mobility and actual protection. Couriers running the Mojave in reinforced leather weren't undergeared. They were smart. Speed kills in the desert, not having speed kills faster. But Fallout 4 is where leather armor became something genuinely special. The modular system lets you attach pieces to individual limbs, upgrade them at workbenches through boiled and studded tiers. Suddenly, leather wasn't disposable gear. You trashed the second combat armor showed up. It was a platform you built on. I personally ran a full studded leather set deep into the mid-game because I liked the aesthetic and the weight savings. Was it the mathematically optimal choice? No. Did I look like a post-apocalyptic road warrior who absolutely knew what they were doing? Yes. And in the Commonwealth, projecting projecting confidence is half the battle. The other half is not wandering into a Deathclaw nest, which I also did. In the leather armor, it went about as well as you'd expect. Here's the deeper point though. Leather armor is the one constant across every Fallout game because it represents the one constant across every post-apocalyptic society: human stubbornness. No faction designed it, no corporation branded it, no military issued it. People made it because people needed it, and they kept making it for 200 years because the wasteland never stopped demanding it. Every other armor on this list has a story about who built it and why. Leather armor's story is simpler and more powerful. Someone looked at the wasteland, refused to accept death, and made protection out of whatever they could find. That's not just armor. That's civilization refusing to go extinct. So if leather armor is the wasteland saying I'm still here, then the next armor is the wasteland saying I'm still here, and I've completely lost my mind. Raider armor, worn desperation. Raider armor is ugly, not aesthetically ugly, although yeah, it's that too. It's ugly because of what it represents. Every piece of Raider armor in Fallout is a confession, not of strength, of damage. And once you understand that, you'll never look at a set of Painspike armor the same way again. Here's what most people get wrong about Raiders. They see the violence, the chems, the cannibalism, and they think evil people doing evil things. But Fallout's lore tells a different story. Most Raiders weren't born Raiders. They were wastelanders who got broken. Starvation breaks people. Watching your settlement burn breaks people. Getting betrayed by the one group you trusted breaks people. And when someone breaks badly enough, they stop trying to be part of society and start trying to scare society into leaving them alone. Raider armor is that philosophy made physical. Fallout 3 is where Raider armor got its identity. Bethesda didn't just give Raiders generic scrap. They gave them themed sets. Painspike armor, metal plates with sharpened spikes jutting outward, designed to hurt anyone who gets close, including the wearer. Sadist armor, reinforced for durability with a design that makes it very clear its wearer enjoyed causing pain. Blastmaster armor, heavy plating scavenged from vehicles and machinery, built for someone who expects explosions and doesn't care about mobility. Each name tells a story. Each design tells a worse one. These aren't equipment categories. They're psychological profiles you can wear. The base Raider armor is almost poetic in how pathetic it is. Scraps of leather, random metal, held together with straps and what I can only assume is optimism. It barely qualifies as protection. But that's the point. It's not about stopping damage. It's about looking dangerous enough that people don't test you. Raiders wearing base gear aren't planning to win through equipment. They're planning to win because you hesitated. And in the wasteland, hesitation gets you killed. Fallout 4 expanded Raider armor into the full modular system. Light, sturdy, and heavy variants for each limb and torso. Craftable, upgradable, which creates this wonderfully disturbing gameplay loop, where you massacre a Raider camp, strip the armor off bodies that are still warm, haul it back to your settlement, and then sit at a workbench carefully improving each piece like a tailor, with a very unusual clientele. Let me just reinforce these leg plates that a guy named Skullcrusher was wearing 10 minutes ago. A little more ballistic fiber. Perfect. Yeah, that's normal behavior. Totally fine. But here's what makes Raider armor genuinely important to Fallout's world. It's evidence. Every scrap of Raider armor in every game is physical proof that the Wasteland's social systems failed someone. The NCR couldn't protect them. The Minutemen couldn't reach them. Diamond City wouldn't let them in. Whatever safety net was supposed to exist had a hole, and that person fell through it. Then they landed, looked around, and built armor out of road signs and rage because nobody was coming to help. That's not a villain origin story. That's an indictment of every faction that claims to be rebuilding civilization while people starve outside their walls. You might think Raider armor is the darkest entry on this list. Philosophically, you might be right, but here's what's interesting. The Wasteland didn't just produce people who gave up. It also produced people who grabbed scrap metal and said, I'm going to build something real. And that decision changed everything. Metal armor. Industrial Rebirth metal armor doesn't look impressive next to combat armor or ranger gear. It's rough, heavy, loud, the kind of thing that announces your presence to every hostile in a 3-block radius. But metal armor might be the most significant non-powered armor in the franchise for a reason that has nothing to do with damage resistance. Metal armor is proof that the Wasteland figured out manufacturing, and that changes everything. Here's why that matters. For the first century after the bombs, most Wasteland armor was reactive. People found stuff and wore it, scavenged pre-war gear, stripped equipment off dead enemies, tanned leather because that's all they had. But metal armor requires something different. You need raw materials. You need heat, serious heat, forge level heat. You need tools. And most importantly, you need knowledge. Someone had to understand metallurgy well enough to turn scrap into functional armor plating. That's not scavenging. That's the industry. Small scale, crude, and imperfect? Sure, but industry nonetheless. In Fallout 1, metal armor represented a major milestone in any playthrough. Riveted steel plates over a flexible undersuit designed to stop most conventional ballistic threats. Finding it meant you'd either accumulated serious wealth or defeated a serious enemy. Either way, respect. Nothing says I've made it in the wasteland like wearing something that required actual effort to create, instead of just duct taping a car door to your chest. Fallout 2 continued this with broader availability. Metal armor showed up on mercenaries, caravan guards, and organized wastelanders, people with enough stability to maintain real equipment. That distribution pattern is significant. Leather armor appears on everyone. Metal armor appears on people with structure, jobs, roots, communities. The armor becomes a class marker. Not rich versus poor, but organized versus desperate. And in the wasteland, organization is currency. Fallout 3's Capital Wasteland version leaned hard into the hand-forged aesthetic. You could see the hammer marks, the uneven rivets, the rough edges where someone had beaten steel into shape by hand. Every piece looked like someone's personal project. That craftsmanship communicated something the game's dialogue never needed to say. Somewhere in this wasteland, there's a blacksmith, and that blacksmith represents the first step back towards civilization. In a region as devastated as DC, that meant everything. The Capital Wasteland is one of Fallout's harshest environments. The fact that people there still found time, resources, and skill to forge metal armor tells you that even in the worst conditions, human ingenuity doesn't stop. It adapts. New Vegas put metal armor on the Mojave's professional class. Mercenary companies, caravan outfits like the Crimson Caravan and various mercenary operations, people who got paid to fight and needed equipment that reflected that. The reinforced metal armor variant added extra plating and looked noticeably more imposing, the kind of upgrade that told potential attackers this person takes their job seriously and you should reconsider. Fallout 4's modular treatment gave metal armor light, sturdy, and heavy tiers with various material upgrades. And here's where I'll die on a small hill. Polished heavy metal armor in Fallout 4 is gorgeous. Thick, gleaming plates with clean lines that give your character an almost medieval knight quality. I know people skip metal armor because combat armor exists. I think that's wrong. There's a mid-game window where fully modded metal competes with unmodified combat armor, and you look significantly more intimidating. Sometimes the wasteland isn't about optimal stats. It's about walking into a room and having everyone decide you're not worth the trouble. Polished metal does that. Metal armor proves the wasteland can be built. But here's the brutal truth. Nothing the wasteland has built in 200 years comes close to what the pre-war world mass-produced as standard military issue, and the next armor is living proof of that gap. Combat armor, Dead World's ghost combat armor haunts the Fallout universe, not because it's scary, because it's a reminder. Every set of combat armor still functioning in the wasteland is a message from a Dead World saying, we knew this was coming, we prepared, and it still wasn't enough. If that doesn't hit you, nothing will. So the pre-war military developed combat armor for one simple reason. Most soldiers were never getting power armor. Power armor went to elite units, frontline shock troops, special operations, the headline-grabbing forces that showed up in propaganda reels. Everyone else, you know, the guys who actually did the work while the power armor troops got all the recruitment posters, got combat armor, and to the military's credit, they made it exceptional. The standard package, reinforced polymer ceramic composite plates bonded to a flexible bodysuit, light enough for sustained operations, tough enough to stop most conventional ballistic and energy threats, modular enough to be maintained in the field without specialized equipment. This wasn't flashy tech. It was practical engineering at its absolute best, the kind of design that sacrifices pizzazz for reliability and ends up saving 10,000 lives because of it. In Fallout 1, finding combat armor was transformative. The game's difficulty curve fundamentally changed because suddenly encounters that were life-threatening became manageable. Raiders who previously posed genuine danger became minor inconveniences. That power shift is the entire point. Combat armor wasn't designed to make soldiers invincible. It was designed to make competent soldiers survivable. And survivable, in Fallout's world, is the highest compliment any equipment can receive. Fallout 2 expanded the lineup with Mark II variants and Brotherhood-maintained sets. The Brotherhood of Steel treated combat armor with the same reverence they gave power armor. Cleaned, repaired, preserved, and never shared with outsiders unless absolutely necessary. That possessiveness tells you something about combat armor's value. 200 years after the war, a functional set is still worth killing over. Not because it's rare, exactly, but because nothing new matches it. The Wasteland can forge metal plates. It can tan leather. It cannot replicate polymer ceramic composite manufacturing. That technological gap is combat armor's real story. It's the ghost of capabilities that no longer exist. New Vegas placed combat armor across the Mojave with purposeful distribution. NCR soldiers wore it as standard issue for their more experienced units. Brotherhood paladins maintained pristine pre-war sets. High-level mercenaries and bounty hunters wore it because their lives literally depended on having the best available protection. The reinforced variant pushed defensive stats high enough to rival entry-level power armor at a fraction of the weight. Think about that for a second. A suit you can put on without training, without a fusion core, without hydraulic assistance, offering protection competitive with powered military hardware. That's insane engineering, and it was considered standard issue. The pre-war military's baseline was the post-war world's peak. That gap defines Fallout's entire setting. Fallout 4 turned combat armor into arguably the game's most versatile equipment system. Modular pieces for every body slot, standard, sturdy, and heavy base tiers. Material modifications including polymer, fiberglass, and the coveted Boss combat armor paint schemes. A fully upgraded heavy combat armor set in Fallout 4 is one of the best-looking outfits in any Fallout game. Clean lines, angular plating, professional without being flashy. You look like the kind of person who files mission reports after clearing a building full of super mutants. I spent an unreasonable amount of time at armor workbenches, comparing polymer versus fiberglass versus shadowed modifications across every piece. It was a pain going back and forth between vendors, hunting for adhesive and fiberglass. But I hate myself, so I did it, and the result was magnificent. But combat armor's true importance isn't stats or aesthetics. It's the question it forces you to confront. The pre-war United States could engineer armor this sophisticated, manufacture it at scale, and distribute it across a global military, and they still couldn't prevent nuclear annihilation. Combat armor is the physical proof that technological excellence doesn't equal survival. The best protected soldiers in human history couldn't stop the worst decision in human history. Every functional set in the Wasteland is a monument to that failure. Pristine, intact, completely useless against the thing that actually mattered. If combat armor represents what pre-war engineering achieved at its conventional peak, then the next armor takes that legacy and fuses it with something money can't manufacture and training can't replicate. Legend. And you already know exactly which armor I'm talking about, because if you've played New Vegas, you've never forgotten it. NCR Ranger Armor, Fear's uniform. I need to get something off my chest before we go any further. NCR Veteran Ranger Armor is the single greatest armor design in the entire Fallout franchise. Not one of the greatest, the greatest. Including power armor, including everything. The duster coat, the helmet with the red-eye lenses, and integrated rebreather. The way the entire silhouette communicates, I am the last thing you will ever see without saying a single word. I will die on this hill, and I will die looking incredible because I'll be wearing this armor when I do. Now, the history. Because the history is what makes this armor more than just a cool design. The armor everyone associates with the NCR Rangers didn't originate with the NCR at all. It came from the Desert Rangers, a post-war law enforcement and militia group that operated across Nevada and Arizona decades before the Republic expanded east. These original Rangers were independent, disciplined, lethally competent, and equipped with pre-war military combat armor supplemented by distinctive dusters and the now iconic helmets that combined breathing filtration with optical enhancement. In a lawless wasteland, the Desert Rangers were often the only law, and their armor was how you recognized them. That silhouette meant help is here or justice is here, depending on which side of the problem you were standing on. In 2271, the Ranger Unification Treaty brought the Desert Rangers into the NCR. The Republic needed their expertise in the Mojave. The Desert Rangers needed the NCR's resources and institutional support. When the merger happened, the equipment came with it, and suddenly, the NCR's most elite force inherited not just armor, but mythology. Every story, every legend, every raider who told campfire tales about a figure in a duster who appeared from the desert and left nothing alive. The NCR didn't just get soldiers, they got ghosts. The NCR was smart enough to weaponize that reputation. Veteran Rangers in full combat armor became the Republic's ultimate deterrent. Not because of firepower, although their firepower was terrifying, because of what the image represented. That helmet, those red lenses, the coat. When that silhouette appeared on a ridgeline, the message was received before a single shot was fired. The NCR sent their best. You've been judged. The verdict is not in your favor. Yeah, the Fiends love operating near Camp McCarran. Works out brilliantly for them. And by brilliantly, I mean veteran Rangers Rangers keep turning them into cautionary tales. But hey, points for persistence. The Patrol Armor variant tells a different but equally important story. Standard Ranger Patrol Armor is a leather duster over lighter body protection. Functional, recognizable, but missing the terror factor of the full combat set. That visual distinction communicates rank without words. Patrol Ranger? Capable. Dangerous if provoked. Veteran Ranger? Don't provoke. Don't engage. Don't make eye contact. Reconsider every life decision that brought you to this moment. But Ranger Armor also exposes the NCR's deepest weakness. There aren't enough veterans. There aren't enough sets. The Republic's territorial hunger far exceeds its ability to protect what it claims. Ranger Armor becomes a double-edged symbol. The NCR's absolute best are terrifyingly effective, but the NCR's absolute best are a finite resource stretched across an infinite problem. In the gaps where no Ranger stands, that's where the Wasteland reminds everyone that symbols don't stop bullets. Only Rangers stop bullets, and there are never enough Rangers. So if Ranger Armor represents the peak of what post-war military tradition can produce, skill wrapped in legend wrapped in pre-war hardware, then the next armor asks what happens when military tradition isn't refined over generations, but invented from scratch by a man who read about Rome and thought, yes, but with more violence. And the answer is as fascinating as it is horrifying. Legion Armor, bones and ideology. The Legion doesn't believe in comfort, doesn't believe in ergonomics, barely believes in complete torso coverage, and their armor philosophy can be summarized in one sentence that sounds insane until you realize it works. If the armor doesn't hurt you, it isn't teaching you anything. Caesar built his legion from conquered tribes across Arizona and beyond, forging a slave army modeled on ancient Rome, or more accurately, modeled on what Caesar, a former follower of the apocalypse named Edward Sallow, decided Rome should have been. That interpretation prioritized dominance, suffering, and the absolute rejection of pre-war technology as moral corruption, and the armor reflects every piece of that ideology with brutal consistency. Recruit Legionary Armor is where the philosophy starts, and it starts rough. Sports equipment, leather straps, maybe a metal plate if someone likes you. Some Recruit Armor literally incorporates pre-war football pads, which is either darkly funny or deeply depressing depending on your perspective. Probably both. These recruits face enemies with firearms, energy weapons, and explosives, while wearing gear that wouldn't pass safety inspection at a high school scrimmage. You might think that's a critical tactical flaw, and you'd be right, but Caesar would tell you that's the filter. Survive with nothing? You've earned something. Die with nothing? You weren't worthy. Whether this produces better soldiers or just a higher body count is a question the Mojave answers conclusively. It's the body count. Veteran and prime legionaries receive progressively better equipment, structured metal plates, reinforced leather sections, designs that suggest someone with actual skill assembled them rather than just strapping junk together in a rage. The improvement is real, but deliberately capped below what equivalent NCR or Brotherhood soldiers wear. That gap is intentional. Caesar's doctrine treats technological dependence as weakness. His soldiers are supposed to overcome through discipline, brutality, and numbers, not equipment advantages. The armor enforces that doctrine physically. You can't rely on your gear when your gear is designed to be insufficient. You can only rely on yourself. That's either profound military philosophy or criminally negligent leadership. The game lets you decide. Centurion Armor is where the Legion's approach becomes genuinely chilling. Centurion Armor isn't manufactured, it's assembled from trophies. A Centurion earns their armor by defeating enemies and incorporating pieces of the Fallen's equipment into their own set. You'll see what looks like NCR equipment welded alongside Brotherhood of Steel plating, miscellaneous faction gear strapped and bolted wherever it fits. Each piece is a defeat. Each piece is a death. The armor is a kill record you wear into battle, and the Centurion wants every enemy to read it before the fighting starts. That's not just intimidation. That's psychological warfare refined into an art form. A Centurion walks into a room, and everyone in that room immediately knows how many people tried to stop him and failed. Legate Lanius's armor exists in a category beyond Centurion. Massive, theatrical, designed to make the Legate look less like a soldier and more like a mythological punishment given physical form. It isn't optimized for protection in any conventional sense. It's optimized for terror. The enormous frame, the brutal face mask, the sheer weight of presence. Lanius's armor turns a man into a monument. And considering that Lanius is arguably the single most feared individual in the entire Mojave, someone whose name alone makes veteran soldiers reconsider their career choices, the armor does exactly what it was built to do. I think the Legion's armor philosophy is one of the most fascinating design decisions in New Vegas, because it's simultaneously insane and internally logical. Reject technology, glorify suffering, build your armor from your enemy's corpses. It's abhorrent. It's also incredibly effective as both military doctrine and psychological warfare. Every piece of Legion armor communicates the same message. We don't need your technology. We don't need your comfort. We just need you to be afraid. And the Wasteland, which runs on fear as much as it runs on caps, listens. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every bad Fallout ending explained in X minutes, click on the video on the screen.